1763 hours. That was all that stood between Emma Hayes and eviction. Again, the bills lay spread across the scratched counter of Crossroads Diner. Like accusations, each one a reminder of how far behind she'd fallen. Rent due Friday, $300 short. Her landlord, Vincent Shaw, had already sent the warning letter last month, typed on expensive letterhead words cold and precise. One more late payment will result in termination of lease agreement. Emma's fingers trembled as she counted the coins in crumpled singles from tonight's tip jar. 8 hours on her feet for $17.63. She'd served 42 customers, refilled coffee until her arm ached, smiled until her face hurt, and this was what she had to show for it. A Tuesday night in October, the kind of shift that made her question every choice that had led her here. The neon sign outside flickered 3 times before dying completely, plunging the parking lot into shadow. Emma didn't even look up anymore. That sign had been dying for 3 months, ever since Hal told her he couldn't afford to call an electrician. The whole diner was falling apart in slow motion, cracked linoleum, leaking roof walk-in freezer that ran constantly because the seal was shot. Every surface worn smooth by decades of use, nothing left but bones. She was 28 but felt ancient. Her strawberry blonde hair, once her mother's pride, now pulled back in a messy bun that never quite stayed together. The uniform she wore had been purchased 2 years ago when she'd started at Crossroads, back when she'd thought this job would be temporary, just until she figured things out. The hem was fraying now, threads coming loose like everything else in her life. She'd taped the sole of her right shoe back together 3 times this month. Couldn't afford new ones, couldn't afford anything beyond the bare minimum of survival. The radiator in her studio apartment had broken again last week, 3rd time since summer ended. Emma had called Shaw's property management office 5 times, left messages that went unreturned. She'd been sleeping in sweatpants in 2 blankets, watching her breath fog in the cold morning air. When she'd finally scraped together the nerve to knock on Shaw's actual office door downtown, his secretary had looked at her like she was something stuck to the bottom of a shoe. "Mr. Shaw is very busy. Repairs will be addressed in the order they were reported." Which meant never. Emma hadn't eaten since breakfast. An overripe banana snatched from the discount bin at the grocery store where she worked her afternoon shift. She could have made something here at the diner. Frank the cook always told her to help herself, but she'd learned to ignore hunger years ago. Food cost money. Money went to rent, utilities, the minimum payment on the credit card she'd maxed out when her car died last spring. There was never anything left over for luxuries like 3 meals a day. The television mounted in the corner droned on local news anchor warning about flash flood watches across western Pennsylvania. Storm system moving in from Ohio expected to intensify overnight. Emma was too exhausted to care about weather. She had bigger storms to worry about, the kind that came in envelopes marked final notice. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. A text from Maya, the morning shift waitress, who'd become something close to a friend over the past year. "How'd closing go? Get any good tips?" Emma stared at the screen, at the cheerful bubble of words that assumed good things happen, that the universe occasionally smiled on people like them. She typed back $17. You 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Damn girl, that's rough. Lily's birthday this weekend, can't cover your Saturday shift." Sorry, of course she couldn't. Maya had a 6-year-old daughter and an ex-husband who'd stopped sending child support checks 8 months ago. She was drowning too, just in a different ocean. Emma sent back a thumbs-up emoji because what else was there to say? They were all drowning. All the servers and cooks and cashiers grinding themselves down to nothing for tips that barely covered gas money. The clock above the register read 11:47 p.m. 13 minutes until official closing time, but the last customer had left an hour ago. Old Mr. Patterson from the trailer park nursing a cup of coffee and a slice of pie for 2 hours because it was warm here and his electric had been shut off. Emma hadn't charged him for the refills. Some rules you broke because they were meant to be broken. She grabbed the mop and bucket from the storage closet, started her closing routine. Stack the chairs on tables, wipe down the counter, sweep, and mop the floor. Movements so practiced they'd become automatic muscle memory, carrying her through when her brain shut down from exhaustion. This was her 3rd job. She opened at the grocery store at 6 a.m., worked until 2 p.m., then rushed to the catering company for the 3 to 7 p.m. shift, on good days the 3 to 9 p.m. shift when events ran long. Then here to Crossroads for the dinner and closing shift until midnight or later. 7 days a week, sometimes 18 hours a day, and still she was $300 short on rent. The mathematics of poverty were simple and brutal. Her studio apartment cost $950 a month. Her 3 jobs brought in roughly $1,800. After rent, utilities phoned the minimum credit card payment, the outstanding medical bill, from when she'd gotten bronchitis last winter and couldn't afford to miss work. So she'd gone to the ER, the student loan payment for the community college semester she'd managed to complete before running out of money. After all of that, she had about $40 a month for food, gas, emergencies, life. One unexpected expense, and the whole fragile structure collapsed. Last month, it had been a flat tire. This month, it was the late rent from last month. Next month, it would be something else, because that was how the wheel turned when you were poor. You never caught up. You just fell behind in slower motion. Emma's back ached as she pushed the mop across the floor. 28 years old with the body of someone twice her age. She'd pulled something in her shoulder last week lifting boxes at the grocery store, but she couldn't afford to see a doctor, couldn't afford to take time off. She just swallowed ibuprofen dry and kept moving because stopping meant losing everything. The memory surfaced unbidden the way it sometimes did when she was too tired to keep it buried. Age 8, sleeping in the back of her mother's Honda Civic in the middle of January. Her father had left 2 years earlier, just walked out one morning, and never came back. Her mother had tried to hold things together, waitressing and cleaning houses, but the math didn't work then either. They'd been evicted 3 days before Christmas. Emma could still remember the cold, how it seeped through the car windows and settled in her bones. How her mother had cried silently in the front seat, trying to hide it, but Emma had known. They'd been homeless for 2 months. Sleeping in the car, washing up in gas station bathrooms, eating whatever free samples the grocery stores offered. Then one night, shivering and desperate, her mother had pulled into the parking lot of a diner not unlike this one. A kind woman named Mrs. Chen had seen them through the window, recognized the particular hollow look of people with nowhere to go. She'd unlocked the door after closing, let them sleep in a booth, brought them hot soup and bread. It was the first time Emma had felt warm in weeks. Mrs. Chen had helped them get into a shelter, connected her mother with a social worker, gave her mother a job washing dishes. One act of kindness had saved their lives. Emma had never forgotten that. Never forgotten that sometimes all it took was one person willing to open a door. That was why she was still here, grinding herself down to dust for $17 a night. Because somewhere in the back of her mind, she still believed in the possibility of kindness. Still believed that if she just worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, stayed good enough, the universe would eventually return the favor. She knew it was stupid, knew the universe didn't work that way. But the alternative was despair, and despair meant giving up, and giving up meant becoming her father. So she kept going. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Emma glanced toward the window, saw rain beginning to streak the glass. The storm the news had warned about arriving right on schedule. She hoped her car would start. The battery had been acting up, and she couldn't afford a replacement. Just one more thing on the endless list of problems she couldn't solve. She was wringing out the mop, thinking about whether she had enough gas to get home when the banging started. Loud, insistent, urgent. Bang, bang, bang against the glass door. Emma's heart jumped into her throat. Her hands went slick with sudden sweat. Nobody knocked on the door of a closed diner at midnight unless something was very wrong or they wanted something you shouldn't give them. She turned slowly, mop still in her hands like a weapon, and peered through the rain-blurred windows. Shapes, multiple shapes, big ones. At least 10 of them crowded on the small covered stoop, all wearing dark leather water streaming off their clothes. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, sharp with warning. Bikers are dangerous, Emma. Criminals, drug dealers, rapists. You see men like that, you run. Diane Hayes had a lot of opinions about who was and wasn't safe, most of them wrong, but this particular warning had been drilled into Emma from childhood. Motorcycle clubs meant trouble. Everyone knew that. Her instinct screamed at her to turn off the lights, pretend she hadn't heard, wait until they left. The smart thing, the safe thing. The closed sign was clearly visible. She had no obligation to open the door to strangers at midnight, especially not strangers who looked like they could snap her in half without effort. But even as her rational mind cataloged all the reasons to stay locked inside, Emma's feet carried her closer to the door. Close enough to see details through the water-streaked glass. One of them was shivering violently, arms wrapped around himself, like he was trying to hold his body together. Another was supporting an older man who swayed on his feet, face gray with cold. They weren't banging threateningly. They were knocking desperately. Emma's hand hesitated on the deadbolt. Through the door, muffled by rain and glass, a voice called out. Deep, rough, but not angry, almost pleading. Her fingers found the lock before her brain caught up. The bolt slid back with a click that sounded too loud, too final. She pulled the door open 6 inches, keeping her weight against it in case she needed to slam it shut fast. Cold air and rain gusted inside. The man in front was tall, maybe 6'2", with a gray beard and weathered face that put him somewhere in his 50s. Water dripped from his hair, his leather jacket pooled at his feet. The patch on his chest read Steel Brotherhood MC with President underneath. Behind him, 9 other men in various stages of soaked misery. His ice-blue eyes met hers, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Emma saw him taking her in, young, alone, scared, while she cataloged everything her mother had warned her about. Leather and chains and tattoos and patches that probably meant things she didn't understand. Then his shoulders sagged slightly, exhaustion and cold winning out over whatever pride kept bikers standing tall. His voice came out hoarse. We know you're closed. Emma's grip tightened on the door edge. We've been turned away from 4 places already. Storm came out of nowhere, caught us on Route 22. Highways flooding ahead, we can't get through. We just need to wait it out somewhere warm. His hand moved and Emma flinched. He froze, then slowly, carefully pulled out his wallet, opened it to show cash. We can pay. We're not asking for charity, just shelter until the storm passes. She should say no, should apologize and close the door and lock it and call someone, anyone. Hal would understand. Anyone would understand. You didn't let strange men into a diner at midnight when you were alone. That was common sense. That was survival. But Emma found herself looking past the president to the others. A kid who couldn't be older than 25, teeth chattering audibly, lips tinged blue. The older man barely conscious on his feet. A woman Emma hadn't noticed her at first, with water streaming down her face, mascara running, shaking so hard that her leather jacket rattled. How long had they been out in this? 2 hours, 3. How long have you been riding in the storm? The words came out before she could stop them. The president's jaw tightened. 2 hours, maybe more. Lost track. The kid behind him looked like he might actually be hypothermic. The older man's eyes were starting to roll back in his head. If Emma turned them away, if she made them get back on those motorcycles and ride into a storm that was only getting worse, someone could die. Someone could crash on the flooded highway, slide off the road, end up in a ditch. She thought about Mrs. Chen, about 8-year-old Emma shivering in the back of a car, about the warmth of that diner booth, about the soup that had tasted like salvation, about how one person's kindness had changed everything. Get inside before you all catch pneumonia. The words came out firm, authoritative, surprising her with their strength. Emma pulled the door wide, stepping back, quickly before the wind takes it off the hinges. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. They stared at her like she'd just spoken a foreign language, like the concept of an unlocked door was beyond comprehension. The young one found his voice, first disbelief written across his face. You're letting us in, I said quickly. Didn't I? Emma's fear was still there, coiled tight in her chest, but underneath it ran something else. The memory of cold, of desperation, of doors that stayed locked. Whatever these people were, whatever the patches on their jackets meant, right now they were just human beings who needed help. And Emma Hayes knew what it felt like to need help. They filed in slowly, carefully, like they were afraid sudden movement would make her change her mind. Water puddled on the floor with every step, leather creaking, boots squelching. The older man stumbled, and 2 others caught him, eased him into the nearest booth. The young one's teeth were chattering so hard he couldn't seem to form words. The woman wrapped her arms around herself, shaking. 10 of them, total, Emma counted, all dripping and miserable and grateful. The president was last through the door. He met her eyes again, something complicated passing over his face. Not just gratitude, something deeper. Like he was seeing someone he knew, someone he'd lost. Thank you. 2 words, but they carried weight beyond their simplicity. Emma locked the door behind them, buying herself a moment to let her heartbeat slow to process what she'd just done. Then she turned, squared her shoulders, and made her voice steady. Sit anywhere. I'll get the coffee going and see what's left in the kitchen. The president started to speak. Ma'am, we can pay. We're not, did I say it was charity? Emma cut him off, hands on her hips, channeling some version of herself that existed only in moments of crisis. A version that didn't shake, didn't second guess, didn't let fear make her small. You'll pay for food if you order it. Coffee's free tonight because I'm not charging for basic human decency. Now sit down before you flood my entire diner. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Something about her tone, her stubborn refusal to be intimidated, seemed to reach him. He nodded once, sharp and respectful. Yes, ma'am. They settled into booths like obedient children, peeling off soaked jackets, wringing out shirts. Emma moved behind the counter on autopilot, firing up the industrial coffee maker, the familiar routine steadying her nerves. The machine gurgled and hissed, filling the diner with the smell of brewing coffee. It was the best smell in the world at midnight, warmth and comfort, and the promise that morning would eventually come. She pushed through the kitchen door. Frank had cleaned and organized everything before leaving it at 10 ingredients prepped for tomorrow's breakfast rush. Emma wasn't a cook, not really, but she knew her way around the basics. Eggs, bacon, toast, hash browns. Simple food, the kind that stuck to your ribs and reminded you that being alive was sometimes okay. By the time she emerged with the first coffee pot, the bikers had arranged themselves across 3 booths and a handful of counter stools. They'd hung their jackets on chair backs, revealing an unexpected variety underneath. The president wore a faded flannel shirt. The young one had a band t-shirt. The older man, now wrapped in someone's dry hoodie, wore military dog tags around his neck. Emma started pouring coffee, working her way down the counter. Rough hands cupped the mugs like they contained liquid gold. A few of them made sounds that were almost whimpers, grown men undone by simple heat. The woman closed her eyes when she took the first sip, tears mixing with the water still streaming down her face. How many eggs can you eat? Emma directed the question to the room at large. As many as you're willing to make. The president's voice carried quiet authority. I'll see what we've got. Back in the kitchen, Emma cracked 3 dozen eggs into a massive bowl, laid out strips of bacon on the flat-top grill, dropped bread into the toaster 4 slices at a time. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency while her mind raced. What had she done? What was she doing? These were bikers, motorcycle club members, people her mother had taught her to fear. And yet here she was, cooking them breakfast at midnight, like it was the most natural thing in the world. But when she pushed back through the kitchen door with the first round of plates, what she saw wasn't danger. It was relief, gratitude, humanity in its most basic form, cold people getting warm, hungry people being fed. The young one's eyes went wide when she set the plate in front of him. This is you didn't have to eat, Emma cut him off, already turning back for more plates. She made 3 trips carrying food until everyone had a heaping plate of eggs, bacon toast, hash browns. The kind of meal that cost $8.95 during regular hours, but tonight would cost whatever they wanted to pay because Emma had stopped doing the math. She was running on something deeper than economics now. Some instinct that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with what it meant to be human. The older man was crying as he ate, tears running silently down his weathered cheeks. Nobody commented on it. The woman ate with both hands like she was afraid the food would disappear. The president ate slowly, methodically, but his eyes kept tracking back to Emma every time she moved past. What's your name? He asked it quietly when she came by with the coffee pot for refills. Emma Hayes, Jackson Cole. He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Emma shook it. His grip was firm, but careful, like he was conscious of his own strength. Friends call me Jax. Are we friends? The question came out before Emma could think about whether it was wise to be flip with the president of a motorcycle club. But Jax's smile widened. After what you've done tonight, yeah, I'd say we are. The young one at the counter introduced himself as Tyler, his voice still shaky from cold. The woman was Michelle from the Lehigh Valley chapter. The older man with his dog tags was Pete, though everyone called him Pops. One by one they offered names, pieces of themselves, small thank yous wrapped in identity. They were riding from California to Pennsylvania for a memorial service. A brother had died, fellow biker military funeral. The storm had caught them on a stretch of Route 22 where everything closed at 9 p.m. They'd stopped at a truck stop, a 24-hour diner, 2 gas stations, and a motel. Every single place had taken one look at the leather and patches and found reasons to deny them. We're closed, no vacancies, health code violation, can't serve large groups. Come back tomorrow. The last place Tyler said quietly, staring into his coffee, the guy actually threatened to call the cops. Said we looked like trouble. We were just asking to wait out the storm. Emma felt something hot and sharp lodge in her chest. Anger on their behalf. They'd done nothing wrong, committed no crime, but people had seen the jackets and made assumptions. Seen the motorcycles and decided these were dangerous men instead of just men. Tired, cold, desperate men who needed help. That's wrong. Her voice came out fierce. Jax met her eyes across the counter. Yeah, it is, but it's how the world works for people like us. We're used to it. You shouldn't have to be. Something shifted in his expression. That complicated look again, like he was seeing someone else's face superimposed over hers. A flicker of pain quickly buried. No, we shouldn't. The rain hammered against the windows, wind rattling the glass. Inside the diner had become a small island of warmth in a cold world. Emma kept the coffee flowing, brought out more toast, listened as they talked among themselves. Stories about the road, about the brother they'd lost, about the strange beauty of being on a motorcycle at dawn, when the highway stretched empty ahead and anything felt possible. Pops had served in Vietnam, 3 tours. He told Emma about coming home to a country that spat on him, called him baby killer, refused to hire him. The Brotherhood saved my life, he said, touching the steel Brotherhood patch on his vest with reverence. When the world said I was worthless, these men said I was family. That matters more than people understand. Michelle talked about her teenage daughter, how she worked as a nurse to put her kid through college. People see the leather and they think I'm a bad mother. But I taught my girl to judge people by their actions, not their appearances. She's going to be a doctor. Tyler was 25, an electrician by trade, saving money to start his own business. He joined the club at 21 right after his father died. These guys taught me everything my dad didn't have time to, he said, gesturing around the diner. How to be a man, how to stand up, how to have honor. Emma listened to all of it, her preconceptions crumbling with every story. These weren't criminals. They were just people, complicated, flawed, beautiful people who'd found family in an unconventional place. They worked regular jobs, had kids paid taxes, donated to veterans charities, organized toy drives at Christmas. The patches on their jackets didn't make them monsters. They made them members of something bigger than themselves. By 2 a.m. the storm had passed. The rain had gentled to a drizzle, the wind dying down. The highway would still be wet, but no longer dangerous. Time to go. They paid their bill, $180 for the food, which was more than fair, and tried to leave a tip. Emma refused until Jax pulled out 5 20s and pressed them into her hand. We take care of people who take care of us. That's how the Brotherhood works. You fed us, warmed us, treated us with dignity when nobody else would. This is us saying thank you. Emma's throat tightened. $100. She could make rent, could finally make rent without having to beg Shaw for an extension. I don't know what to say. Say you'll remember us. Jax's voice was soft, that complicated expression back in his eyes. Say that next time you see someone who needs help, you'll open the door. I will. The promise came easily. I always will. They filed out one by one, stopping to thank her personally. Tyler gave her a quick hug that smelled like coffee and leather. Michelle squeezed her hand. Pops kissed her cheek, whispering, "Bless you, girl," in her ear. Jax was last. He paused in the doorway, rain misting in around him, and pulled out a business card. Plain white cardstock with a phone number and the Steel Brotherhood logo. You ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call this number. Day or night. Doesn't matter what it is. Understand? Emma took the card, confused. Okay, good. He studied her face one more time, memorizing every detail. And Emma, check your phone in the morning. Before she could ask what he meant, he was gone. 10 Harleys rumbled to life in the parking lot, headlights cutting through the rain. Emma stood in the doorway, watching their taillights disappear down Route 22, feeling like something significant had just happened, but not quite understanding what. The diner suddenly felt very empty, very quiet. Emma locked the door and leaned against it, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. She should finish cleaning, should count the register, should get home before she fell asleep standing up. Instead, she found herself counting the money in her apron pocket. $17.63 from the entire night, plus $100 from the bikers. $117.63. Not enough for rent, not by a long shot, but enough to buy groceries. enough to put gas in her car, enough to prove that sometimes kindness was rewarded. She thought about Jax's words. Check your phone in the morning. What did that mean? She pulled out her phone, but there was nothing unusual. No new messages, no calls, just the usual collection of bill reminders and spam texts. Emma shook her head. Probably nothing, just a strange thing to say at the end of a strange night. She finished her closing routine in a daze, wiped down the tables they'd used, swept up the water they'd tracked in. The diner looked the same as it always did, worn and tired and barely holding on. But something felt different. Like the walls had absorbed some of the warmth from the past few hours, some of the basic human decency that had passed between strangers. It was almost 4 a.m. by the time Emma locked up and walked to her car. The parking lot was empty except for her 15-year-old Honda Rust creeping up from the wheel well's check engine light perpetually glowing. She turned the key and held her breath. The engine coughed, sputtered, caught. Small victories. The drive home was quiet, streets empty, the storm having chased everyone inside. Emma's mind kept circling back to the night, to the moment she'd unlocked that door. It had been such a small thing. Let some cold people come inside, make them coffee, cook them food. Basic human kindness. But their gratitude had been so profound, so genuine, like she'd given them something precious instead of just breakfast. Maybe that was what people needed most. Not grand gestures or heroic sacrifices, just someone willing to see them as human. To open a door when everyone else kept it locked. Emma pulled into the parking lot of her apartment complex, a sagging collection of two-story buildings that had been built in the 70s and maintained poorly ever since. Her studio was on the second floor, accessible by an external staircase, with a railing that wobbled when you grabbed it. She climbed the steps slowly, her whole body aching. Inside her apartment was cold enough to see her breath. The radiator sat silent and useless in the corner. Emma didn't have the energy to be angry about it. She just pulled on sweatpants and a hoodie, crawled under two blankets, and let unconsciousness take her. Her alarm went off at 9 a.m. 5 hours of sleep. It would have to be enough. Emma slapped at her phone to silence the shrill beeping, then froze. Her phone was buzzing, constantly, like it was vibrating apart. She squinted at the screen, brain foggy, not quite processing what she was seeing. Notifications, hundreds of them. Facebook, Instagram, her email, even Twitter, which she barely used. Friend requests, tags, mentions, messages, all flooding in faster than she could read. Emma sat up suddenly, wide awake. What the hell? She opened Facebook first. The notification count read 473. That couldn't be right. She had maybe 60 friends total, mostly people she'd gone to high school with and hadn't spoken to in years. Who would be tagging her in 473 posts? The most recent tag was a photo. Emma clicked on it and her heart stopped. It was her, last night standing behind the Crossroads counter with a coffee pot in hand, smiling tiredly at someone off camera. She looked exhausted, bags under her eyes, hair falling out of its bun, uniform rumpled, but there was something genuine in her expression. Something warm. The caption made her hands start shaking. This is Emma from Crossroads Diner outside Pittsburgh. When 10 of us showed up, soaking wet at midnight, every other place turned us away. She opened her door, made us coffee, cooked us food, treated us like family. Remember this face. Remember this kindness. The Steel Brotherhood doesn't forget. Biker family, #real, kindness, #crossroads. Diner posted by Tyler Brooks. 6 hours ago, 4,200 shares. Emma's vision blurred. She blinked hard, but the numbers didn't change. 4,200 people had shared a photo of her serving coffee in a dying diner to 10 bikers who'd needed help. The comments were flooding in too fast to read. Hundreds of them from strangers all over Pennsylvania and beyond. This is what brotherhood means, heading to Pittsburgh next week, definitely stopping by. Finally, someone who gets it. Bikers are people too. My club's in Ohio. We're making a detour this weekend. This woman is an angel. Everyone needs to support this diner. More notifications pinged. Instagram. Someone had cross-posted the photo there. Then Twitter. Then to biker forums she'd never heard of. The shares kept climbing. 4,500, 4,800, 5,000. Emma's phone rang, the diner's landline number. She answered with shaking hands. Emma. Oh, thank God. Maya's voice was high with panic. Where are you? You need to get down here, like right now. What's wrong? Is everything okay? Wrong. Nothing's wrong. Everything's insane. There are people everywhere asking about you, and some bikers just showed up and I don't. Emma, just get here. Please, the line went dead. Emma threw on yesterday's jeans and a clean sweater. Didn't bother with makeup, grabbed her keys. Her phone kept buzzing in her pocket as she ran down the stairs, notifications piling up faster than she could process. 5,000 shares, 6,000, 7,000. What had Tyler done? Why had he posted that photo? This was supposed to be private, just a quiet moment of helping some people who needed it. Now strangers across the internet were talking about her sharing her face, acting like she'd done something extraordinary instead of just making coffee. The 15-minute drive to Crossroads felt like hours. Emma's mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe the photo would be forgotten by lunchtime, swallowed up by the internet's endless appetite for content. Maybe this was just a weird blip that would go away if she ignored it. Then she turned onto Route 22 and saw the parking lot. Her foot slipped off the gas pedal. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, at least 30 of them packed into a lot that usually held maybe 15 vehicles on a good day. More cars lined up along the shoulder of the highway, people walking toward the diner like pilgrims to a shrine. And the sign. The neon Crossroads diner sign that had been flickering and dying for 3 months was glowing. Steady and bright like it was brand new, every letter perfectly illuminated. Emma pulled into the only remaining spot at the far edge of the lot, her heart hammering so hard it hurt. She got out slowly, looking around in disbelief. The motorcycles were all there, 10 of them parked in a neat row, the same bikes from last night. And standing beside them, looking far too well rested for people who'd only had a few hours of sleep, were the Steel Brotherhood members. Jack spotted her first. His face broke into a grin, and he called out, "There she is!" Several bikers turned to look, then several more. Word rippled through the gathered crowd like a wave. "That's her. That's Emma, the woman from the photo." Emma walked toward them on numb legs, bewildered. "What's going on? What did you do?" Jack stepped forward, hands in his pockets, looking pleased with himself. "We came back at sunrise. Figured we owed you more than a tip. You fixed the sign." It wasn't a question. The evidence was glowing right above them. "Tyler's an electrician." Jax jerked his thumb at the young biker who waved sheepishly. "Took him 20 minutes. We also patched that leak in your roof above the kitchen. Pops noticed it last night. And replaced the rubber seal on your walk-in freezer. That thing was bleeding cold air like a wound." Emma's throat went tight. "You didn't have to." "Yes, we did." Jax's voice was firm but kind. "What you did last night meant something, Emma. You didn't just give us shelter. You gave us dignity. You saw us as people when everyone else saw problems. That's worth more than a new sign." But all these people. Emma gestured at the packed parking lot, the line forming at the diner door. Where did they come from? Tyler stepped forward, looking slightly guilty. "That might be my fault. I posted the photo to some biker forums last night, and Instagram and Facebook. It kind of went viral." "Viral," Emma repeated the word like it was foreign, which it might as well have been. Viral was for celebrities and influencers and people who mattered, not for broke waitresses serving coffee at midnight. "Yeah." Tyler pulled out his phone, showed her the numbers. "Last I checked, it was at 8,000 shares. A lot of clubs saw it. They want to support you." 8,000. The number was meaningless, too big to grasp. Emma looked at the diner again, at the line of people waiting to get inside, at Maya, visible through the window, rushing around with plates. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake. "I need to..." She started toward the diner, but Jax caught her arm gently. "Emma, this is just the beginning. Word travels fast in our world. By tonight, everyone from here to the coast will know about Crossroads Diner and the woman who runs it." "I don't run it." The correction came automatically. "I just work here." Jack smiled, that complicated expression back in his eyes. "Maybe that'll change." Before Emma could ask what he meant, Maya burst through the diner door. "Emma, I need you." The next 6 hours passed in a blur. Emma had never seen the diner this busy, not even on weekend mornings when they sometimes got a church crowd. Every booth filled, every stool at the counter occupied, people standing and waiting for tables. Like this was some upscale restaurant instead of a roadside diner with cracked linoleum. Frank had shown up 3 hours early after Maya's panicked call, and even he looked shell-shocked, at the wave of orders coming through. Two more breakfast platters. One burger medium well. Stack of pancakes. 3 eggs scrambled side of bacon. 4 coffees, 2 orange juices, 1 hot tea. The tickets kept printing orders backed up, but nobody complained. The customers were patient-friendly, tipping extravagantly. Emma watched in disbelief as 20s and 50s piled up in the tip jar. A $20 tip on a $12 breakfast. $50 on a $30 bill. One man paid for his $15 meal with $100 and told her to keep the change. The bikers who'd come weren't just from Steel Brotherhood. Devil's Disciples Road Warriors, Lone Wolves clubs Emma had never heard of, patches from different states. They filled the booths and talked across tables, swapping stories with other customers, creating an atmosphere that was part family reunion and part community gathering. And they kept thanking her. Every single one stopping by to shake her hand or offer a quick hug, telling her that what she'd done mattered, that they'd driven an hour, 2 hours, or 5 hours to support her because she'd shown the kind of respect they spent their whole lives fighting for. People see the jacket and make assumptions, an older woman in Devil's Disciples colors told Emma as she refilled her coffee. They don't see that I'm a grandmother, that I volunteer at the library, that I've never even gotten a speeding ticket. They just see the leather and think criminal. You saw us as human. That's rare. By 2 p.m., the register showed $1,847, more than Crossroads usually made in a week. Emma's feet ached and her back screamed, but she'd never felt more alive. This was what it felt like to be part of something bigger than yourself, to watch kindness ripple outward and come back multiplied. Hal arrived at 3 earlier than usual and stood in the doorway staring. Emma had been working at Crossroads for 2 years, and she'd never seen that expression on his face. Wonder mixed with disbelief, mixed with something that might have been hope. He pulled her aside into the kitchen, away from the chaos. "What did you do?" "I just let some people in out of the rain." Emma's voice shook. "I didn't mean for any of this." "Emma," Hal gripped her shoulders, his eyes wet. "In 38 years of owning this place, I've never seen anything like this. You might have just saved us." "Saved us from what?" But Hal just shook his head, let her go, didn't answer. He headed to the office and closed the door, and Emma was too busy to push for explanation. The afternoon crowd finally thinned around 4 p.m. Emma collapsed onto a stool at the counter, every muscle trembling with exhaustion. Maya brought her a glass of water and a sandwich she hadn't asked for. "Eat. You haven't eaten anything all day." Emma was too tired to argue. She took a bite of turkey and cheese, barely tasting it. "Is this real? Tell me this is real." "It's real." Maya sat beside her, looking equally drained. "And it's not over. I've had at least 20 people ask if we're open for dinner. Usually Thursdays are dead. It's Wednesday." "Is it?" Maya laughed, slightly hysterical. "I've lost track of time." Jax approached the counter, looking relaxed and satisfied. "Mind if I steal Emma for a minute?" Maya waved them off. Jax led Emma outside, away from the diner noise, to where the Steel Brotherhood bikes were still parked. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out an envelope. "From all of us. Consider it a thank you." Emma opened it. Cash. $50 bills, at least 20 of them. More money than she'd ever held at once in her life. "I can't accept this." "You can and you will." Jax's tone left no room for argument. "Use it however you need. Rent, bills, groceries, whatever. We take care of our own. And after last night, Emma, you're one of us." The other bikers nodded. Pop stepped forward, touching the brim of his cap. Michelle smiled. Tyler gave a thumbs up. They meant it. To them, this wasn't charity. This was family. "I don't know what to say." Emma's voice cracked. "Say you'll keep the door open. For us, for others, for anyone who needs it." "I will." The promise came easily, same as last night. "I always will." Jack smiled, squeezed her shoulder, and headed for his bike. The others followed, mounting up, engines rumbling to life. They pulled out in formation, waving as they went, and Emma stood in the parking lot holding an envelope full of cash and wondering how her life had changed so completely in less than 24 hours. She walked back inside to find Hal emerging from the office, his face gray. He held a piece of paper in shaking hands. "Emma," his voice was barely a whisper. "We need to talk." Maya saw his expression and went pale. "What's wrong?" Hal handed Emma the paper. Official letterhead. Vincent Shaw Property Management. The words blurred and sharpened and blurred again as Emma's brain tried to process what she was reading. Notice of rent adjustment. Effective November 1st, 2025. New monthly rent, $7,500, previously $3,200. Emma read it 3 times. The numbers didn't change. $7,500. More than double. The explanation was buried in legal language that tied her brain in knots, but the core message was clear: significant changes in business operations resulting in increased property value gave the landlord authority to adjust rent with 30 days notice. He's doing this because of today. Maya's voice was high and tight. Because we finally had a good day, he's punishing us. Not punishing. Hal sank into a booth, suddenly looking every one of his 62 years. Capitalizing. Shaw saw the attention, the customers, the money. He knows we're finally succeeding. And he wants his cut. Emma's hands clenched around the envelope Jax had given her. $1,000. It had felt like salvation 5 minutes ago. Now it felt like a drop in an ocean. $7,500 a month was impossible. Even with the viral boost, even if this level of business somehow sustained, they'd barely break even after food costs and utilities and wages. Can we fight this? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Hal pulled out another document, the lease agreement, section 12B, highlighted in yellow. The legal language was dense, but the meaning was clear enough. Shaw had the authority to adjust rent if significant changes occurred, and today had definitely been significant. We could try. Get a lawyer, file a dispute, but that takes time and money we don't have. How much time do we have? Notice is effective November 1st, 30 days from now. Maya did the math out loud. We're already mid-October. That's barely 2 weeks to figure something out. Emma looked at the certified letter, at the cold language and official stamp. 24 hours ago, she'd been worried about making rent on a $950 apartment. Now she was staring at a $7,500 monthly bill for a diner that might or might not stay viral long enough to afford it. The envelope in her hands suddenly felt both precious and worthless. The biker's gift could make her apartment rent. It couldn't save the diner. Nothing could save the diner if Shaw was determined to price them out. There has to be something we can do. But even as Emma said it, she could see the defeat settling into Hal's shoulders. He'd been fighting this battle longer than she knew. Fighting to keep a diner alive that should have died years ago, holding on because it was all he had left of his wife, of 38 years of their life together. And now, just when it looked like things might finally turn around, someone was trying to take it away. I'm sorry, Emma, Hal's voice broke. I should have told you sooner. Should have been honest about how bad things were. I just kept hoping. His voice trailed off. Emma sat across from him, Maya beside her, the three of them forming a small circle of shared despair. Outside, cars continued to pull into the lot. Customers who'd heard the story, who wanted to be part of something good. Inside, the diner that had given Emma purpose and Hal meaning, and Maya a paycheck that kept her daughter fed, was dying again. Slower this time, suffocated by greed instead of neglect. Emma thought about Mrs. Chen, about the diner that had saved her and her mother 2 decades ago. How that act of kindness had rippled forward through time, shaping the person Emma became. How she'd tried to pay it forward last night, opening her door to strangers. The universe had responded with thousands of shares, strangers driving hours to support her bikers, who considered her family now. The universe had responded with vindication and hope and proof that kindness mattered. And then Vincent Shaw had responded with a rent increase designed to crush them. Emma's phone buzzed. Another notification. The photo was at 12,000 shares now. National news sites were picking it up. Good Morning America wanted to interview her. Someone had started a GoFundMe without asking her permission, raising money to support the Kindness Diner. All of it wonderful, all of it meaningless if they couldn't afford to keep the doors open. She looked at Hal, at this man who'd given her a job when she desperately needed one, who'd trusted her to close a loan, who'd become something like a father figure over 2 years of shared shifts. She looked at Maya, single mother, barely holding on, who needed this job as much as Emma did. She looked at the diner, worn and tired, but still standing, still serving, still proving that good things could survive in a world that tried to kill them. We'll figure something out. The words came from somewhere deep inside Emma, from the place that had made her unlock the door last night, that had chosen compassion over fear. We didn't come this far to give up now. Hal looked at her with something like wonder. Maya grabbed her hand, squeezed hard. The diner door chimed. New customers walking in looking for the woman from the photo wanting to be part of the story. Emma stood, wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders, picked up the coffee pot, and went back to work. She didn't know how they'd fight Vincent Shaw. Didn't know how they'd find $7,500 a month. Didn't know if the viral attention would last or fade like morning fog. But she knew she wouldn't face it alone. Somewhere out there, 10 bikers who'd become family were riding toward whatever came next. Thousands of strangers who'd shared her photo believed in what she represented. And in her pocket, Jax's business card waited with a number she could call day or night. The storm from last night had passed, but Emma could feel another one building on the horizon, bigger this time, darker. The kind that tested whether you meant what you said about keeping doors open and standing up for what mattered. She poured coffee for a couple at booth 3, smiled at the teenage girl, asking for a selfie, took an order from a table of bikers who'd driven in from Harrisburg. Outside, the sun was starting to set, golden light streaming through the windows. The neon sign glowed steady and bright. For now, they were open. For now, they were standing. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Thursday afternoon sunlight turned the diner's windows into sheets of gold, beautiful and blinding. Emma stood behind the register, watching another wave of customers filter in, families, college students, a group of construction workers still in their hard hats. All of them clutching phones, checking to make sure they had the right place, the diner from the photo that had now been shared 17,000 times. 17,000. The number kept climbing every time she checked. News sites were running the story with headlines about kindness and community, and the waitress who'd restored faith in humanity. Emma wanted to laugh at the absurdity. 24 hours ago, she'd been $17 short of making rent. Now strangers were calling her a hero for doing what any decent person should do. But heroes didn't get $7,500 rent increases. Heroes didn't stand in back offices staring at eviction notices while their hands shook. Her phone buzzed. Jax, got your message about the rent situation. Gathering some people, be there in 30 minutes. Emma had called him an hour ago, voice cracking, as she explained about Shaw's letter. She'd felt stupid doing it. These were bikers she'd met once, not family, not friends who owed her anything. But Jax had said to call if she needed help, and Emma was drowning. Thank you, she texted back, then immediately felt guilty. Thank you for what? They couldn't fix this. Nobody could fix $7,500 a month except a miracle. Maya peered at her elbow, voice low. Table 6 wants to know if you'll take a picture with their kids. And that reporter from Channel 4 is still waiting outside. Says she'll stay all day if she has to. Emma pressed her palms against her eyes. The attention had seemed wonderful this morning when it was about supporting the diner. Now it felt like weight, like exposure, like standing naked while the world decided whether you were worthy of their interest or just another viral moment that would be forgotten by next week. Tell the reporter I'm working. Pictures with the kids are fine. She followed Maya to table 6 where 2 little girls in matching dresses bounced in their seats. Their mother held up her phone, already smiling. Emma crouched between the girls, forced her face into something approximating joy, held the pose while the camera clicked. The girls hugged her afterward, their small arms fierce with the kind of uncomplicated affection only children could give. You're even prettier in person, one of them announced solemnly. Thank you, sweetheart. Emma's throat went tight. These people had driven here because they believed in something. Believed that one person opening a door could matter, that kindness deserved support, that the world could be better if everyone tried a little harder. And now Shaw was going to destroy it, going to prove that kindness got punished, that trying to help people just made you a target for those who saw everything as an opportunity to profit. The diner door opened and bikers started filing in. Not the original 10, though. Emma spotted Jax and Tyler among them, but at least 20 men and women in leather vests adorned with patches. Steel Brotherhood Devil's disciples, a few she didn't recognize. They moved through the crowded diner with practiced ease, nodding at customers, not taking up tables. Just present. Jax caught her eye and jerked his head toward the back. Emma told Maya to cover the register and followed him to the office where Hal was still sitting with the rent notice in his lap, staring at it like concentration alone could make the numbers change. The bikers filled the small room, making it feel even smaller. Jack shut the door. A man Emma hadn't met before, wire-rimmed glasses, clean-shaven, Looked more like an accountant than a biker pulled out a laptop. This is Gabe Morrison, corporate lawyer. Rides with us on weekends. Emma blinked. A lawyer, actual legal help. Something loosened in her chest. Gabe took the rent notice from Hal's unresisting hands, read it quickly, his expression darkening. Section 12B. They always hide behind Section 12B. Can we fight it? Hal's voice was barely audible. In court, yes. You could challenge the definition of significant operational changes. Argue that increased customer volume is normal business fluctuation, not structural change. But that takes 6 months minimum, and Shaw knows you don't have 6 months. Another biker, older, barrel-chested, patch-reading, Road Warriors MC, pulled out his phone. I'm Reaper, work in real estate appraisal. Let me pull some comps. His thick fingers moved over the screen with surprising dexterity. After a moment, he whistled low. Average commercial rent for this square footage in Millbrook is $2,600 a month. Shaw's asking almost triple market rate. That's not adjustment, that's extortion. But legal extortion, Gabe said, flipping through the lease. Section 12B gives him broad discretion. You signed away your protection when you agreed to this. Hal's face crumpled. Linda was sick. We needed money. Shaw offered to buy the property outright, let us lease it back. I thought it was a good deal. I didn't read the fine print carefully enough. Emma wanted to rage at him, at Shaw, at the universe that let good people make mistakes and punish them forever. But Hal looked so broken already, so defeated. Adding her anger wouldn't help. How much do we have in savings? Emma directed the question to Hal, after Linda's medical bills. Maybe 8,000, enough for 1 month of the new rent with nothing left over. Tyler spoke up from where he leaned against the wall. What about today's numbers? If business stays this good, it won't. Hal cut him off. Viral stories fade. In a month, maybe 2, we'll be back to normal revenue. And normal revenue is $4,500 a week on a good week. After food costs, utilities, wages, we clear maybe $1,200 a week profit. That's $4,800 a month. We'd be $2,700 short every single month. The math was brutal and inescapable. Even with the viral attention, even if every day was as good as today, which it wouldn't be, they couldn't sustain this rent. So we need a different strategy, Jack said, his voice carrying authority that made everyone turn. Shaw thinks he can bully Emma because she's small and vulnerable. He's about to learn she's not alone. What are you proposing? Gabe adjusted his glasses, lawyer instincts clearly engaged. Document everything. Every conversation with Shaw gets recorded. Every interaction logged. We file formal disputes to buy time. Launch a community petition showing public support. Get media involved. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. Make it clear that shutting down this diner means going through all of us. And if he doesn't care about public opinion, Emma heard herself ask. Jax met her eyes. Something hard in his expression, something that reminded her these were men who live by their own code. Then we get creative. Before Emma could ask what creative meant, Tyler held up his phone. Already started. Posted an update about the rent increase. 8,000 shares in the last hour. People are pissed, he showed Emma the screen. Her photo again, but this time with text overlay explaining Shaw's rent hike. Comments flooding in hundreds per minute. This is disgusting, and boycott Shaw properties. And someone started GoFundMe. I launched a petition too, Tyler continued. Change.org. Stop greedy landlord from closing Crossroads Diner. Already got 1,200 signatures. 1,200? In an hour. Emma felt dizzy. Gabe, you filed a formal dispute. Jax was taking charge. Organizing like this was a military operation. On it. Emergency hearing request with the zoning board. Harassment claim. It'll take them a week to process, but it buys us time. Good. Reaper, can you pull Shaw's other properties? See if there's a pattern already running the search. They moved with such efficiency, such coordination, like they'd done this before. Maybe they had. Maybe this was what brotherhood meant, showing up when someone needed help, bringing every skill and resource to bear. Emma looked at Hal, saw tears running down his weathered face. Not sadness, gratitude. These strangers, because they were strangers, really people he'd never met until today, were fighting for him, for his diner, for the life he'd built with his dead wife over 38 years. Why? The word came out before Emma could stop it. Everyone looked at her. Why are you doing this? You don't owe us anything. You came in out of a storm and I made you coffee. That's it. Why would you go to war for us? Silence for a beat, then Jack spoke, his voice rough with emotion. Because you saw us as human beings. You know how rare that is. People see the leather, see the bikes, see the patches, and they make assumptions. We're criminals, thugs, drug dealers. Doesn't matter that I own a construction company, that Tyler's an electrician, that Gabe here graduated Yale Law. They see the jacket and decide who we are. He took a step closer to Emma. You didn't do that. You were scared, I could see it in your eyes, but you opened the door anyway. You fed us, talked to us, treated us like we mattered. You know what that means to people who spend their whole lives being judged? Emma's vision blurred. She tried to blink back tears, but they came anyway, hot and fast. I'm not special. I'm just, you're exactly what this world needs more of. Jax interrupted. And we're not going to let some greedy landlord destroy that. Shaw wants a fight. He's got one. The room erupted in nods, murmurs of agreement. Emma felt something shift inside her chest. That wall she'd built after years of disappointment of doors, closing in her face, of learning that survival meant never counting on anyone, it started to crack. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, let's fight. But Friday afternoon brought the developer. Emma was clearing table 9 when Maya hissed her name, voice tight with warning. Emma looked up and saw him immediately, expensive suit cutting through the diner's working-class atmosphere like a knife, Rolex catching light shoes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He walked straight to the counter, bypassing the hostess station, and Emma's hackles rose. Men who ignored boundaries rarely stopped at one. Emma Hayes. His smile was all teeth, no warmth. I am. Can I help you, Derek Kane? Hutchkins Development Group. He produced a business card, heavy, stock embossed letters, the kind of card that announced money and power and connections. I've been following your story. Very inspiring. Mind if we talk somewhere private? Emma's grip tightened on the tray she was holding. I'm working. If you want food, there's a wait. I'm not here for food. I'm here with a business proposition. Regarding this property, her stomach dropped. The diner's not for sale. You haven't heard my offer yet. His smile never wavered, but something predatory moved behind his eyes. $500,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. Emma heard Hal's sharp intake of breath from the kitchen pass through. $500,000. More money than either of them would see in a lifetime. Enough to pay off Hal's debts with plenty left over. Enough to change everything. That's more than this place is worth by any metric. Kane continued, sensing hesitation. The building needs work. The land is small. But the story, the viral attention, that has value. We could build something modern here. A franchise location. You could stay on as consultant, put your name on it. Emma's kindness. Cafe has a nice ring, doesn't it? Emma looked around the diner, at Maya balancing plates, at Frank visible through the kitchen window, working the grill, at the bikers in their corner booth, watching this interaction with predatory attention. At the worn booths and cracked linoleum and vintage Coca-Cola sign that had been here since 1987. This wasn't just a building, it was history, community home. No, the word came out firm, final. Kane's smile thinned. You're making a mistake. That rent increase Shaw hit you with, you think that's the end. Property taxes will get reassessed. Health inspections every week. The system will bleed you dry. Better to cash out while you can. Is that a threat? It's reality. I've been developing properties for 15 years, Miss Hayes. Small businesses like this don't survive once they attract attention. The machine eats them. Always. Movement in her peripheral vision. Jack standing up from the corner booth, his posture casual, but his presence suddenly filling the room. He walked toward them with deliberate slowness. Lady said no. Time to leave. Kane turned and something flickered across his face when he saw Jack's. Recognition. Then something darker. Fear or hatred or both twisted together. Jackson Cole. Didn't recognize you at first. Still playing hero. Jax's expression went stone cold. Derek, thought you'd learn to stay away from my territory. The air between them crackled with 10 years of bad history. Emma looked from one to the other, confusion mixing with growing dread. Your territory? Kane's laugh was sharp, bitter. You don't own Pennsylvania coal. And this, he gestured around the diner. This is just business. Though I'm sure watching you lose something you're trying to protect must feel familiar. Jax took one step forward, just one, but it was enough to make Kane flinch enough to remind everyone in the room who carried real power here. Walk away, Derek, while you still can. For a moment, Emma thought Kane would escalate, would push this into violence. Then his carefully constructed mask snapped back into place. He turned to Emma, produced another business card. Think about it. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer expires and you're on your own. He left without another word. Through the window, Emma watched him pull out his phone the moment he hit the parking lot, calling someone, reporting back. This wasn't over. You want to tell me what that was about? She directed the question at Jax, who'd gone rigid, hands clenched into fists. Tyler spoke up from the booth. Derek Kane used to ride with Steel Brotherhood 10 years ago before Prez expelled him. Emma's stomach went cold. Expelled for what? Jax's voice came out flat, emotionless. Dealing, using the club as cover to move product. When we found out, we held a vote. Unanimous to kick him out. He swore revenge. Looks like he finally found his opportunity. The pieces clicked together in Emma's mind. Kane wasn't just a developer looking for profit. This was personal. Revenge wrapped in a business suit, using her diner as collateral damage in a decade-old grudge. So I'm caught in the middle of your old drama. Anger flared hot in Emma's chest. You made me a target by helping me. Jax flinched like she'd hit him. Emma, everyone who helps me has ulterior motives. My mother wanted a meal ticket when she bothered to show up. My ex wanted free rent. Now you what? You want redemption. A way to stick it to your old enemy. I want to protect someone for once in my goddamn life. The words came out raw, ragged. Jax's voice cracked, and suddenly he looked older than his 52 years, worn down by weight Emma couldn't see. Silence fell. The diner kept moving around them, customers eating, Maya taking orders, Frank calling out tickets, but in their small circle, time suspended. 3 years ago, I lost my daughter. Jax's hands were shaking. Sarah, she was 26, killed by a drunk driver while walking home from her waitressing job. She had your hair, your smile, your heart. She would have opened that door too, would have fed those strangers, would have given everything to help people who needed it. Emma's anger evaporated, replaced by something sharp and aching. When I saw you Tuesday night, tired, but still willing, still kind, it broke something open in me. I'm not using you, Emma. I'm not playing games. I'm trying to save you because I couldn't save her. And maybe his voice dropped to barely a whisper. Maybe if I can protect you, it means her death wasn't completely meaningless. That her kindness lives on somehow. Tears were streaming down his face now, this tough biker president crying in the middle of a crowded diner. Emma felt her own tears answer hot tracks down her cheeks. She moved forward without thinking and wrapped her arms around him. He held her like she was something precious and breakable, like she was the daughter he'd lost. I'm sorry about Sarah, Emma whispered. She would have liked you. They stood there for a long moment, two broken people holding each other up. Finally, Jax pulled back, wiping his eyes roughly. No more secrets. We fight this together. But Emma, you need to know Derek's not going to stop at property development. He wants to hurt me by hurting you. We need to be ready for that. Ready for what? Emma's question hung unanswered. Friday night, 10 p.m. Emma was counting the register when she heard the front door handle rattle. Her head snapped up. The closed sign was visible, lights dimmed. Nobody should be trying to get in. Two men stood outside, not Kane. Bigger, one in a suit that strained across his shoulders, the other bald, with eyes that held no light at all. Emma's blood turned to ice. She grabbed her phone, finger hovering over Jax's emergency contact as the door rattled again. Harder this time. The lock held, but barely. We're closed, she called out, trying to keep her voice steady. The bald one pressed his face against the glass. Just want to talk about Mr. Kane's offer. Emma hit Jax's emergency button 3 times in quick succession. The signal he'd told her meant danger, real danger, come now. The door crashed open, not picked, just forced the old lock giving way. Emma backed toward the kitchen, phone clutched in one hand, looking for anything she could use as a weapon. Chef's knife, maybe. Anything. The suited one stepped inside casual as if he owned the place. The bald one locked the door behind them. Emma's heart was trying to punch through her ribs. We're just here to have a conversation, the suited one said, his voice reasonable, almost friendly. About being smart, about understanding when you're in over your head. I already gave my answer to Kane. Now get out or I'm calling the police. Emma was amazed her voice worked at all. See, that's the thing. The bald one smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Emma had ever seen. No humor in it, just the promise of pain. Mr. Kane is a generous man. When he makes an offer like that, people usually accept. For their own good. Is that a threat? It's advice. The suited one moved closer, looming over the counter. This area is about to see major development. You can be part of that, make good money, walk away clean. Or you can be a problem. Problems tend to have accidents. Understand. Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket. Jack's responding. She didn't dare look at it. Think about it, the bald one added. Really think. Is this place worth getting hurt over? Worth your pretty friend Maya getting hurt, her little girl. Lily, right? 6 years old. Awful things can happen to kids when their mothers make bad choices. Emma saw red. Pure incandescent rage burned through her fear. They'd threatened Maya, threatened a child. Get out. Her voice came out low, deadly. Get out now, or I swear to God. The suited one laughed. You'll what? You're alone. We could. He didn't get to finish. The roar of motorcycle engines cut through the night, multiple bikes converging on the parking lot. Headlights swept through the diner windows. The two men exchanged glances, surprise and calculation warring on their faces. Your 48 hours starts now, the suited one said quickly. They unlocked the door and left casual, as if they'd just been customers disappearing into the darkness before the bikes arrived. Emma's legs gave out. She slid down the counter cabinet to the floor, shaking so hard her teeth rattled. The door burst open. Jax Tyler, 4 others, all armed with tire irons and wrenches. Emma Jax was beside her in seconds, hands on her shoulders, eyes searching for injury. Did they touch you? Are you hurt? No, just scared me. They said I have 48 hours to accept Kane's offer or accidents happen. They mentioned Maya, mentioned her daughter. Jax's face went white with rage. He pulled out his phone, started typing furiously. Tyler, get the security footage from across the street. Gabe needs evidence. Rest of you sweep the building. Make sure they didn't plan anything. Emma let Jax help her up, her whole body trembling. This is insane. Over a diner, they're threatening children over a building. This isn't about the building anymore, Jax said grimly. This is Derek trying to prove he can still hurt me. You were right, you're caught in our old war. But Emma, I swear on Sarah's grave, nobody's touching you or Maya or that little girl. Nobody. The bikers swept the diner, checking every corner, every shadow. Gabe arrived 20 minutes later, took Emma's statement with the precision of someone building a legal case. By midnight, they had the names of Kane's enforcers, photos of their car license plate, everything. This is criminal intimidation, Gabe said, reviewing his notes. We can press charges. Will that make it worse? Emma asked. Her voice sounded small, childlike. What if they come back? What if they go after Maya? They won't. Jax's voice was iron. Because from now on, you're never alone. We're implementing full security protocols. Someone will be here 24/7 until this is resolved. You can't just watch us. Saturday morning, 6 a.m., Emma arrived for opening to find the parking lot transformed into an armed camp. 80 motorcycles arranged in perfect formation. Their riders standing between the diner and the road like a human wall. Patches from clubs she'd never heard of, Iron Saints Desert Riders, Midwest Brotherhood. Multiple states represented. Emma walked through the rows in a daze, each biker nodding as she passed. At the entrance, Jack stood with his arms crossed. Morning. Sleep okay? Not really, Emma admitted. She'd spent the night at Maya's apartment, neither of them able to be alone after the threats. Welcome to your security detail. Jax gestured to the assembled riders. Day shift is 10 riders, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Night shift is 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., rotating every 48 hours. Nobody gets near this diner without going through us. Jax, this is too much. You all have jobs, families. You're family now. Reaper cut in from nearby. You don't get it yet, kid. You're what we point to when people say bikers are trash. You're proof that respect goes both ways. Protecting you is protecting all of us. Emma wanted to argue, but the words died. looking at 80 bikers who'd given up their Saturday morning to stand guard, who'd coordinated across multiple clubs and states, who'd brought this kind of force to protect one broke waitress arguing, seemed pointless. "Thank you," she said instead. Inadequate words for overwhelming gratitude. At 9:30, a black Mercedes pulled into the lot. Derek Kane emerged with his two enforcers from last night. They took 3 steps toward the diner and stopped dead. 80 bikers turned as one. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was more threatening than any words could be. Kane stood frozen, calculating odds. He couldn't win. Finally, he laughed bitter and sharp. Message received, Cole. But Emma, he raised his voice to Carrie. That $500,000 offer expires in 48 hours. After that, you're on your own against Shaw's rent increase. Good luck. He got back in his car and drove away. His enforcers followed. Emma watched them go, feeling the weight of those 80 bikers at her back, and thought maybe we have a chance. Saturday afternoon turned into a circus. News crews arrived, drawn by social media posts showing the biker security detail. Channel 4, Channel 11, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. The story was evolving. Diner owner threatened biker community rallies to protect her. A reporter thrust a microphone at Emma. How does it feel knowing 80 bikers are here to protect you? Emma looked at the gathered riders at Jack's, standing tall with his Steel Brotherhood patch at the wall of leather and chrome and loyalty. Grateful. These people have jobs, families, responsibilities. But they're here because they believe kindness matters more than profit. That says everything about who they really are. The clip went viral within hours. Tyler's petition hit 5,000 signatures. Local businesses started bringing donations, cash, supplies, letters of support. A rally formed spontaneously in the parking lot, 200 townspeople gathering to show solidarity. Maya spoke, her voice shaking. I'm a single mom. This job feeds my daughter. Emma gave me flexible hours when my babysitter couldn't make it. She fights for us. Now we fight for her. Frank the cook stepped up next. 30 years I've been here. Seen owners come and go. Emma's different. She cares. When good people are under attack, you don't stand aside. You stand up. Hal could barely speak through his tears. This diner was dying before Emma. She brought it back. Now they want to kill it again because we're successful. Over my dead body. Emma watched from the diner steps, overwhelmed. She'd opened a door to help 10 strangers. Now hundreds of people were fighting for her. The math didn't make sense. The universe didn't work this way. Kindness got punished, not rewarded, except here now it did. Here kindness had created an army. By Saturday evening, Tyler's crowdfunding efforts had exploded. What had started as a simple GoFundMe to help the diner fight the rent increase had captured national attention. The biker community had mobilized like a military operation, club after club, pledging donations, sharing the campaign, organizing their own local fundraisers. Emma, you need to see this, Tyler said, pulling her aside around 8 p.m. His phone screen showed numbers that didn't make sense. Wait, that's $127,000, Tyler confirmed, from over 15,000 individual donations. Clubs from 32 states, some giving $50, some giving $5,000. The Steel Brotherhood leadership alone pledged $20,000. Emma's knees went weak. That's not possible. It's real. People are calling it the Kindness Fund. They're not just supporting the diner, they're making a statement. That communities protect their own. That people who open doors deserve protection. Jax appeared beside them. This changes the equation. 127 gives us options. Legal defense fund. War chest if Shaw refuses to negotiate. Security deposit on a new location if worse comes to worst. You're not helpless anymore, Emma. But Emma was staring at the donation list scrolling past. Names and messages from strangers. In honor of every waitress who showed me kindness. My grandmother owned a diner. This is for her. Because my kids need to know good people win sometimes. For Sarah Cole, may she rest in peace. That last one broke her. Donations made in Sarah's memory from bikers who'd never met her, but understood what she'd meant to Jax, who saw Emma as Sarah's legacy. I don't deserve this, Emma whispered. You opened a door, Jax said simply. This is what that looks like when it ripples. Saturday evening, 8 p.m. Gabe called an emergency meeting in the back office. His laptop was open, public records filling the screen. Found something. Shaw's property holdings 40-plus commercial properties across Pennsylvania, cross-referenced with court records. He pulled up a document. 6 months ago, Shaw mortgaged 15 properties. Total loans $2.5 million. That's odd for someone with his wealth. Tyler was already searching social media. Shaw's wife, Catherine Shaw, her Facebook post stopped 18 months ago. Last post mentioned starting new treatment. Emma's stomach nodded. She had a terrible feeling she knew where this was going. Found a newspaper article, Tyler continued. 8 months old, Catherine Shaw battling stage 4 ovarian cancer. Enrolled in experimental trial at Johns Hopkins. Cost $30,000 a month, not covered by insurance. The room went silent. Gabe did the math aloud. Shaw needs $30,000 monthly for Catherine's treatment. His properties generate $80,000 gross, $35,000 profit after expenses. The experimental treatment continues for 18 more months. Total additional cost, $540,000. He's not greedy. Emma breathed. He's desperate. He's trying to save his wife. Jax's expression hardened. Desperate men do terrible things. But we can't hate him for this, Emma insisted. He's fighting for someone he loves. Like you fought for Sarah. Like I'd fight for any of you. Hal spoke quietly. I understand him. When Linda was sick, I would have done anything. Sold anything, but Vincent's making others pay for his crisis. That's where sympathy ends. Emma thought about Catherine Shaw fighting cancer while her husband mortgaged everything to keep her alive. Thought about Vincent Shaw watching his wife die slowly, willing to destroy Emma's life to save her. Thought about the impossible mathematics of poverty and illness, how the cost of survival always fell on those who could least afford it. We could destroy him, Emma said slowly. Leak this to the media, make him the sympathetic figure. But that doesn't solve our rent problem. No, Gabe agreed, but it gives us leverage. How we offer a deal. Fair rent increase, say $4,500, sustainable but still profitable for him in exchange for our help. Use your viral attention to organize a fundraiser for Catherine's treatment. When Shaw gets cash infusion, you keep the diner, Catherine gets help. Emma looked around the room. At Jax, who'd lost his daughter and was trying to save Emma as redemption. At Hal, who'd lost his wife and understood Shaw's desperation. At the bikers, who'd given up their weekend to protect a waitress they barely knew. Could we actually raise that kind of money? Tyler was already calculating. Your story's been shared 22,000 times now. The Kindness Fund hit 127. If we pivoted that energy toward Catherine's treatment, organized a proper charity rally with corporate sponsors, yeah, we could raise serious money. Maybe not all 540, but enough to make a difference. It's risky, Gabe warned. Shaw might refuse. Might think we're trying to manipulate him. Or Emma countered, he might be relieved, might be grateful that someone's offering help instead of judgment. We won't know unless we try. Jack studied her face. You're sure you want to help the man who's trying to evict you? Emma thought about 8-year-old Emma shivering in a car, about Mrs. Chen opening her diner door, about how one act of kindness had saved her life. Thought about Tuesday night and 10 cold bikers and the decision to unlock a door that had changed everything. Kindness ripples, she said simply. That's what this whole thing proved. Maybe it ripples toward Vincent Shaw too. Maybe we can solve this without anyone having to be the villain. Jack smiled, and for the first time since mentioning Sarah, it reached his eyes. Sarah would have made the same choice. Stubborn, compassionate, refusing to see enemies where there could be allies. Is that a compliment? Highest one I can give. They scheduled a meeting with Shaw for Monday afternoon. 2 days to prepare their offer. 2 days for Emma to hope that kindness could defeat greed, that there was a solution where everyone survived, where the world could be slightly better than it was. Outside, the sun was setting. Through the window, Emma could see the biker security detail changing shifts, night crew arriving to replace day crew. The parking lot was still full of supporters, people who'd stayed all day just to show they cared. Her phone buzzed. The petition had hit 7,000 signatures. The Kindness Fund had climbed to $132,000. Tyler was already planning how to redirect that energy toward Catherine's treatment if Shaw agreed to negotiate. Emma thought about Tuesday night, about $17.63, about being $300 short on rent with no hope in sight. Thought about now with an army at her back and thousands of strangers believing in her story. The math still didn't make sense. But maybe that was okay. Maybe kindness didn't have to make sense. Maybe it just had to be. Maya appeared in the office doorway. Emma family at table 3 wants to meet you. Their son has leukemia. Says your story gave them hope that people still care. Emma stood squared her shoulders. This was the real work, not the viral moments or the dramatic standoffs, but the small interactions that reminded people the world contained more good than evil. Tell them I'll be right there. As she followed Maya out, Jax called after her. Emma, we're going to win this, one way or another. Emma looked back at him, at this man who'd become the father she'd never had, who'd brought an army to protect her, who'd given her the family she'd spent 28 years searching for. I know, she said, because we're not fighting alone anymore. And finally, after a lifetime of standing on her own, that was true. Monday afternoon arrived with the weight of everything that mattered hanging in the balance. Emma sat in the passenger seat of Jax's truck watching downtown Pittsburgh's glass towers slide past the window, her hands twisted together in her lap. Behind them, Gabe drove his sedan, with Hal riding shotgun. A two-car convoy heading into battle armed with nothing but hope and a desperate plan. The Vincent Shaw Property Management offices occupied the 14th floor of a building that probably cost more per square foot than Emma made in a year. Marble floors receptionist who looked through them rather than at them. The kind of place designed to remind people of their position in the world's hierarchy. But Emma had 80 bikers standing guard at her diner. She'd watched her story shared 30,000 times. She'd seen strangers drive hours just to show support. The marble floors didn't intimidate her anymore. Shaw's secretary led them to a conference room where Shaw waited with two lawyers flanking him like sentries. He looked older than Emma expected, gray, threading his dark hair lines carved deep around his eyes. The kind of exhaustion that came from watching someone you loved slip away slowly. Photographs covered his desk, visible through the open office door. Catherine everywhere, her smile bright in earlier pictures, dimming in recent ones as illness took hold. One recent photo showed her bald from chemotherapy, still trying to smile, Shaw's arm around her shoulders, like he could hold her together through will alone. Shaw's eyes tracked Emma's gaze to the photos. Something defensive and raw crossed his face before professional coldness and snapped back into place. Mr. Cole? His voice was clipped. Brought your gang to threaten me? We're here to talk. Jax's tone was measured, careful. That's all. Gabe opened his briefcase, slid a folder across the polished table. Mr. Shaw, we're prepared to offer $4,500 per month for Crossroads Diner. That's a 40% increase from current rent fair market value, plus premium for increased business activity. Shaw's lawyer started to speak, but Shaw held up one hand. My client's asking $7,500. Section 12B gives him that right. It also makes him the villain who destroyed a community landmark. Gabe's voice was calm, factual. We've filed formal disputes, 5,000 petition signatures. Every media outlet covering this story. He can fight us in court for 6 to 12 months, rack up legal fees, watch his reputation burn, or we can help each other. Emma's words cut through the legal posturing. Shaw looked at her directly for the first time. Mr. Shaw, I know about Catherine. His spine went rigid. Excuse me, I know she's sick. I know the experimental treatment costs $30,000 a month. I know why you need the money. Shaw's lawyers exchanged glances, but Emma pressed forward. I'm not here to judge you. If someone I loved needed expensive treatment, I'd mortgage everything too. But Mr. Shaw, you're trying to save your wife by destroying my life. There has to be another way. You don't understand. Shaw's composure cracked, voice thick with suppressed emotion. Catherine has 18 months of treatment left. $540,000. I've mortgaged everything. Banks won't lend more. That diner's viral success is my only chance to increase cash flow enough to keep her alive. So yes, I'm desperate to. I'm sorry you're caught in that, but I won't apologize for choosing my wife. The conference room fell silent except for the faint hum of air conditioning. Emma could see Shaw's hands shaking where they gripped the edge of the table. This wasn't a greedy landlord. This was a terrified husband watching his world disintegrate. What if I could help you raise that money? Shaw blinked. What I have viral attention, national media coverage, people who believe in this story. If we organized a fundraiser for Catherine's treatment, real crowdfunding charity rally, corporate sponsors, we could raise serious money. Why would you help me? Shaw's voice was barely a whisper. I'm destroying your business. Emma thought about Mrs. Chen, about Tuesday night, about Jax and Sarah, and the way kindness had rippled through her life in waves. Because I understand desperation. And because there's a solution where we both survive. You don't have to be the villain, Mr. Shaw. Let us help, she outlined the proposal. 4,500 monthly rent sustainable increase that kept the diner viable. In exchange, Emma would organize a charity event leveraging her viral platform. Target goal $100,000, initial fundraising, more if possible. Shaw would give them 90 days to prove the model worked. Shaw stared at the proposal like it might be a trap. His lawyers whispered urgently, but he waved them silent. Finally, he looked at Emma with something like wonder. Why, after what I tried to do, why would you help? Because kindness ripples. Emma's voice was steady. Sure. 2 weeks ago, I opened my door to 10 strangers. They changed my life. They showed me that when you help people, it comes back. Maybe it comes back to you. Maybe to someone else. But it always comes back. You're not my enemy, Mr. Shaw. You're just scared. I can't hate you for that. But I can help you find a better way. Shaw's face crumpled. Tears tracked down his cheeks, and he didn't bother wiping them away. If people actually help, if we can raise that money. He couldn't finish. Just pulled out a handkerchief, rested it against his eyes. Gabe produced the formal agreement already prepared. 4,500 monthly rent. 90-day trial period. Shaw's commitment to public statement supporting the fundraiser. Emma's commitment to organize and promote the charity event. Shaw read every word twice, his lawyers objecting at each paragraph, but Shaw ignored them. Finally, he picked up his pen. His hand shook as he signed his name. Hal signed in next, then Emma. Her signature looked small and uncertain next to the others, but it was legally binding. Co-signer on a lease for a diner that might survive if kindness proves stronger than economics. If you actually raise that money, Shaw's voice was hoarse, I'll owe you everything. You don't owe me. Emma stood, extended her hand. Just be kind to your next tenants. That's how it ripples forward. Shaw shook her hand, his grip desperate and grateful. Through the conference room window, Emma could see the city spreading out below. Somewhere down there, Catherine Shaw was fighting for her life. Somewhere, 80 bikers were standing guard over a diner. Somewhere, thousands of strangers were waiting to see if kindness could win. Emma intended to prove it could. Monday evening, Emma's apartment, 9 p.m. She was heating up ramen, still couldn't afford real groceries despite everything when someone knocked. 3 sharp raps that sent her hard into overdrive. Still jumpy from Friday night's threats. She checked the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway. 50-something, expensively dressed in ways Emma recognized from department store windows she'd never entered. Perfectly styled hair, designer purse jewelry that caught the dim hallway light. Recognition hit like cold water. Emma's hand froze on the deadbolt. Her mother, Diane Hayes. 6 months of silence, and she shows up now. Emma considered not opening the door, pretending she wasn't home. But Diane had seen her shadow move across the peephole. Ignoring her would just delay the inevitable. She opened the door 6 inches, keeping the chain lock engaged. What are you doing here, Mom? Diane's smile was bright practice, completely hollow. Hi, baby. Saw you on the news. You look wonderful. Can I come in? Numb Emma's voice came out flat. We can talk here. Diane's smile flickered. That's not very welcoming. I'm your mother. You haven't called in 6 months. Didn't answer when I called you on my birthday. Didn't respond when I texted that my car died. You don't get to show up now and play mother. I've been busy. You know how it is. Diane waved one manicured hand dismissively. But seeing you on TV, all that success, I thought we should reconnect. Maybe I could help you manage things. All that media attention can be overwhelming. You want money. Emma cut through the performance. You saw the news, assume I'm suddenly rich, and came looking for a payout. Diane's mask slipped slightly. Irritation flashed across her face before she smoothed it away. Don't be crude. I'm your mother. Surely you can spare something for the woman who raised you alone. Raised me, Emma's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. You mean married a man who called me worthless every day for 4 years? Who told me I'd never amount to anything? Who drank himself mean every night while you pretended not to notice? I did my best under difficult circumstances. I begged you to leave him. I was 14 years old begging my mother to protect me, and you chose him. then kicked me out at 18 because I disrespected him by asking him to stop drinking. Emma's hands were shaking now, years of buried rage surfacing. You want to know what I learned from you? I learned that blood doesn't make family. Actions do. Those bikers you saw on TV, they're more family than you ever were. They show up. They protect me. They don't come around only when they think I have money. Diane's pretense evaporated completely. Her voice went hard ugly. Fine, be ungrateful. But when you're spending thousands on some landlord's wife, remember your own mother needed help too. Remember who actually carried you for 9 months, who changed your diapers, and who left me sleeping in a car when I was 8 years old because you couldn't keep a job. Who I watched cry herself to sleep night after night, who only got back on her feet because a stranger showed more kindness than you ever did. Emma stepped back, hand on the door. Get out. Don't come back. You are not part of this story. The only thing you ever gave me was a lesson in who not to be. She shut the door, locked it, leaned against the wood while her heart hammered and her mother's footsteps receded down the hallway. The silence afterward felt enormous. Emma slid down to sit with her back against the door, drawing her knees to her chest. She wasn't sad, she was relieved. 28 years of toxic obligation finally severed. Her phone rang. Jack's, like he had some sixth sense for when she needed him. Hey, just checking in. How you holding up after the meeting? My mom just showed up. Emma's voice came out thick. A pause. What did she want? Money. Saw me on the news, thought I'd gotten rich. I told her to leave. Good. Jax's approval was immediate and fierce. You deserve better than people who only show up when they think you're valuable. She said I was ungrateful. You're the most grateful person I know. You just have standards now. That's different. Emma felt tears slide down her cheeks. Relief or grief or exhaustion, she couldn't tell. Maybe all three. Jax, can I ask you something? Anything? Do you really see me like a daughter, or am I just a replacement for Sarah's silence on the line? Emma held her breath, terrified of the answer. You're not a replacement. Jax's voice was rough with emotion. Sarah was Sarah. Nobody could replace her. But you, Emma, you remind me that good people still exist, that the kindness Sarah believed in isn't gone from the world. I'd be proud to call you my daughter. Not because you're like Sarah, because you're like you. Emma pressed her hand against her mouth to muffle the sob. She would have been lucky to have you as a sister. Jax continued, and I'm lucky to have you as whatever we are. Family. That's what matters. They stayed on the phone for another hour talking about nothing and everything. By the time Emma finally hung up, her ramen was cold, but her chest felt lighter than it had in years. She'd lost her biological mother tonight, but she'd gained clarity. Blood didn't make family. Showing up did. Over the next week, Tyler's campaign for Catherine Shaw's treatment exploded across every platform. What started as a pivot of the Kindness Fund became a national movement. Hashtag Ride for Catherine trended on Twitter. Biker clubs from 40 states pledged to participate in the charity rally. Corporate sponsors started reaching out, regional banks, manufacturing companies, even a national restaurant chain that wanted to associate with the story. Emma spent every spare moment coordinating. Phone calls with club presidents, meetings with corporate donors, planning sessions with event organizers. The rally was scheduled for the following Friday, 1 week from Shaw's agreement, giving them just enough time to pull together something massive. The goal was ambitious, $100,000. Tyler thought they could hit it. Jax was more cautious, talking about $50,000 to $75,000 as realistic. Emma just prayed they'd raise enough to make a difference. Wednesday afternoon, Derek Kane showed up at the diner one last time. Not to threaten, not to make offers. He stood in the parking lot for 5 minutes, watching the steady flow of customers, the bikers coming and going, the community that had formed around Emma's single act of kindness. Emma saw him through the window. Their eyes met. For a moment, something passed between them, not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Kane had lost. He'd tried to use Emma as revenge against Jax, tried to profit from her struggle, and the community had made it clear that wouldn't stand. Kane nodded once slowly, then he got in his car and drove away. Emma later heard through Tyler that Kane had withdrawn his development bid entirely, moved his focus to commercial properties in Ohio. Whether he'd learned anything from the experience, Emma couldn't say. But he was gone. Jax found her still standing at the window. You okay? Yeah. Just thinking about how close we came to losing everything. But you didn't, because you opened a door when everyone else kept it locked, because you saw people instead of problems. That matters, Emma. She turned to him. Does it end, the ripple? Does it stop somewhere? Jack smiled. I don't think so. I think it just keeps going. Sarah's kindness rippled to me. Mine rippled to you. Yours rippled to Shaw, to Catherine, to everyone who's heard this story. Maybe in 10 years, someone who heard about you will open a door for someone else. And it'll keep going. That's a nice thought. It's more than a thought. It's proof. We're standing in it. Friday morning arrived with the nervous energy of something huge about to happen. Emma stood in Crossroads parking lot at 6 a.m. watching the transformation unfold. Over the past week, the space had been converted into a festival ground. A massive banner stretched between two poles. Ride for Catherine, medical fundraiser rally, professional stage with sound system, 50 vendor booths lining the expanded lot, and all profits going to Catherine's fund. Kids area with face painting and stationary motorcycles for photos. Beer garden food trucks coordinated by Frank. Emma's cookies, 500 of them, baked over 3 nights, $5 each. The bikers started arriving at 10 a.m. By 11, 300 bikes filled the parking lot. By noon, 500. By 2 p.m., the number made Emma's breath catch 999 bikes. Jax had called it symbolic. The original 10 who'd knocked on her door times 99 more, plus all of them together equaling 1,000. The completeness of community. But the bikers weren't alone. Families, locals, curious supporters. The crowd swelled to nearly 2,000 people by early afternoon. Vincent and Catherine Shaw arrived at 1 p.m. Catherine in a wheelchair, thin and pale but smiling. Shaw pushed her carefully, his whole body language protective and tender. When they entered the main grounds and saw the massive crowd, both of them stopped. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. Shaw openly wept. Emma approached them, suddenly shy. Thank you for coming. Catherine reached out and Emma took her hand. It felt fragile, bird bone, delicate. I heard what you said to Vincent, about kindness rippling. You're remarkable. I just opened a door. You opened every door. Catherine's eyes were bright with tears. For us, for your community, for people who needed to believe goodness still existed. That's not small. Shaw gripped Emma's shoulder. I was wrong about everything. I'm sorry, you were scared. Emma squeezed Catherine's hand gently. Now let's turn that fear into hope. The rally officially started at 1 p.m. with Jax taking the stage. The crowd noise faded to silence as he spoke. 3 weeks ago, 10 of us knocked on that diner door in a storm. A young waitress named Emma Hayes could have turned us away. Every other place did, but she opened her door, made us coffee, treated us like human beings. Today, 999 of us are here to return that kindness. His voice carried across the grounds, amplified and clear. But we're not just here for Emma. We're here for Catherine Shaw, who's fighting for her life. We're here to prove that community still exists, that when someone needs help, we show up. This is what brotherhood means. The crowd roared. Engines revved in salute, a wall of sound that shook the air. The charity ride started at 1:30, 999 bikes riding through Millbrook in formation, police escort volunteering their time. 50 miles through back roads in highways entry fee of $50 per rider, equaling $49,950. Emma stood on the diner steps watching them leave, their taillights stretching into the distance like a river of hope. Maya beside her, Frank behind them, Hal wiping his eyes. This is insane, Maya whispered. This is family, Emma corrected. While the ride was happening, the grounds buzzed with activity. Silent auction tables displayed donated items. Emma's cookies sold out in 90 minutes, $2,500 from baked goods. Live auction at 3 p.m. brought in thousands more. Corporate sponsors had delivered earlier that morning. Regional Bank, $15,000. Steel Fabrication Company, $25,000. Restaurant chain, $30,000. And one anonymous donation that made Tyler's eyes go wide when he saw it, $50,000 from a rival developer who apparently hated Derek Kane and respected Emma's stand. A massive screen displayed the running total, updated every 15 minutes. 1 p.m., 82,000. 2 p.m., 147,000. 3 p.m., 212,000. 4 p.m., 269,000. Catherine watched the screen from her wheelchair. Shaw standing behind her, both of them crying openly now. $269,000. Half of her total treatment cost raised in 5 hours. Emma found herself surrounded by well-wishers. A young mother. My daughter wants to be like you when she grows up. An elderly veteran. Thank you for seeing them right. A teenager. You made being good cool again. At 5 p.m., Jax pulled Emma onto the stage. The crowd had swelled to capacity, people packed shoulder to shoulder. He handed her the microphone. Tell them what this means. Emma looked out at 2,000 faces. At Catherine in her wheelchair, Shaw beside her, at Maya and Frank and Hal, at Jax, the father she'd chosen, at 999 bikers who'd become an army. When I opened that door 3 weeks ago, I was broke, exhausted, hopeless. Her voice shook but held. One missed rent payment from eviction. $17 in my pocket. No idea how I'd survive. Then 10 strangers knocked and I made a choice. I chose to see them as human beings instead of stereotypes. I chose compassion over fear. That choice changed everything. The crowd was silent. But here's what I learned. Kindness isn't a transaction. It's not, I helped you, now you help me. It's a ripple. I helped 10 bikers. They helped me save my diner. Together we're helping Vincent save Catherine. And all of you, she gestured to the massive gathering. You're proving community still exists, that people still care, that when we choose kindness, it multiplies beyond anything we can imagine. Her eyes found Catherine. I hope this money gives you more time, not just more days, but more moments, more sunrise, more laughter, more love with the man who's fighting so hard to keep you here. Catherine was sobbing. Shaw held her like she might disappear. And to everyone here, you didn't just save a woman's life. You saved my faith in humanity. Thank you. The crowd erupted. Standing ovation. 999 engines revving in perfect synchronization. Emma stood at the center of it, overwhelmed and grateful. Final tally at 6 p.m., $312,000. More than half of Catherine's total treatment cost. Catherine and Shaw came on stage. Catherine stood using Shaw's arm for support, stronger than she'd been all day. The crowd quieted. 3 weeks ago, I was losing hope. Catherine's voice was thin but clear. My husband was desperate. We were drowning. Emma Hayes threw us a lifeline. She didn't have to. We were strangers. She chose kindness. That choice saved my life. Shaw announced his own contribution. $50,000 to a scholarship fund for low-income students pursuing healthcare careers, named after Emma, because she showed me what grace looks like. The renovations took 2 weeks. 40 bikers working in shifts with donated materials transformed Crossroads from worn survivor to something approaching beautiful. New booths with comfortable padding, expanded kitchen, second bathroom, fresh flooring, paint in warm sage green and cream. Everything meaningful preserved the original counter-vintage Coca-Cola sign Hal's proposal booth. Behind the counter, they mounted a plaque, Crossroads Diner, official steel brotherhood, MC Stop, where brotherhood begins with coffee, EST 1987, reborn 2025. Wednesday of the second week, Hal presented Emma with partnership papers, 50-50 ownership. They'd use remaining donations to buy the property from Shaw in 5 years. This doesn't work without you, Hal said. It never did. You brought this place back to life. It should be yours. Yes, Emma said, crying. God, yes. Grand reopening, Friday 3.5 weeks after the storm. The mayor proclaimed it Crossroads Diner Day. Jax presented a certificate signed by 42 motorcycle club presidents, declaring the diner protected ground. Catherine spoke, walking now with just a cane. Emma Hayes gave me back my life. Every breath I take from now on exists because she chose kindness over fear. Shaw announced he'd reduced rent for 2 other struggling businesses because exploitation doesn't honor my wife's second chance. 10 a.m., ribbon cutting. The original 10 bikers sat at the same counter stools. Emma poured their coffee. Full circle, she said. 2 months later, December 24th, Christmas Eve, 11:47 p.m. Emma was closing alone, her choice now. She counted the register. $2,847. Great day. 2 months ago, she'd been counting $17 and change. Now she co-owned this building, had savings, had family, had proof that the universe occasionally rewarded goodness. Her phone buzzed. Text from Jax, Merry Christmas, kid. Proud of you. Emma typed back, Merry Christmas, Dad. She'd started calling him that last week. He'd cried. Movement outside. A young woman, maybe 22, soaked through, car broken down on the roadside. She knocked apologetic. Emma didn't hesitate. Walked to the door, unlocked it, pulled it wide. Get inside, I'll make coffee. The woman's face crumpled with relief. Thank you. I tried 3 other places. You're not closed anymore. Emma guided her to a booth. She glanced at the framed photograph on the wall, her tired smile from that first night caption, reading where kindness begins. Through the window, she saw Jax's truck pulling in, Tyler's car, Maya's SUV, her family showing up because that's what family did. Emma poured coffee for the stranded woman. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. Just keep the door open when someone else needs help. That's how kindness survives. The woman nodded, crying from relief and unexpected grace. Emma looked around her diner, at the fresh paint and plaque declaring this protected ground, at Jax climbing out with jumper cables, Tyler and Maya following. She thought about that storm night, about the choice to unlock a door, about 10 strangers becoming family, about one act of compassion rippling outward until it transformed the world just slightly, just enough. The storm had passed, the battle was won, but the ripple never stopped. Outside, Jax was under the woman's hood, Tyler holding a flashlight, Maya offering blankets. Inside, Emma stood behind her counter watching her family help a stranger because that's what they'd learned to do. She'd opened a door in a storm, found a family, saved a dying woman, built a movement, became co-owner of her own small piece of the world. Not bad for a broke waitress who'd started with $17 and a choice. The neon sign glowed through falling snow. Crossroads Diner, where kindness begins. And in a booth by the window, a scared young woman sat warming her hands on coffee served by someone who understood what it meant to need help, who'd opened a door when everyone else kept it locked, who proved that sometimes all it took was one person willing to say, yes, come in, you're safe here. The ripple continued. The story was just beginning again, with a stranger at the door and someone brave enough to let them in.